Hello, I'm going to show you very quickly how to do a scatter plot based on the spreadsheet data that you have on our gene variants. The information in the spreadsheet was prepared by Jeremy Prokop. Dr. Prokop is an expert in genetic studies in bioinformatics. And I am no expert at using Excel and creating these graphs, but I thought if I at least gave you some of the basics, it would help. The data that I'm using here is made up data so that I can have a small number of things and try to keep it easier for you to follow. If you were to look at the Excel spreadsheet that is posted in your class, the spreadsheet will show you, I think, under ranking tab, column U is the amino acid number, and then the potential impact number is a combination of a lot of statistics that's all linked together, and I think that's column W. And then a column or two over from that, it's organized by whether or not it's benign, likely pathogenic, VUS, that sort of data. So I just quickly made up some numbers and put it in here so you could see how to create a chart. So insert, we're wanting to create a scatter plot, and then I'm going to choose this first one, and it's going to put it in there with no data in there. So then you go up and you hit select data. I'm going to do the first series here, and then I'm going to type in benign as my first series set. Delete the Y values. So now, think about it. Your amino acids, you want to go across the x-axis, and the higher the impact, you want to go up the y-axis. So I'm going to click on the x values, and I'm going to select the amino acids that correspond to the benign, which is the legend that we're working on. And then I go over and I click the y values, and I collect the numbers that are associated with that. Then I do the same thing for all of the other little categories that are in here. So the next one is likely pathogenic. In the chart that you need to create, there's also some other categories like ClinVar and things like that. But you can look at the examples that we've given so you know all of the data that you need to include when you're creating yours. So now we put likely pathogenic as the second one. And remember, the X value is the amino acid numbers. So I highlight all the ones that are for that. And then I'm going to pick the actual numbers that go along with those amino acid sequences for the Y value. And I click plus to add the next one. So I'm going to continue with that very quickly. Pathogenic. And the impact of the pathogenic. Okay. Now I need to add another column, another category, and this one is VUS, which, if you remember, stands for variant of unknown significance. So there's a lot of gene sequences that are out there that we just don't know what their value is, and whether or not it's going to impact the patient. You can use the potential impact number, but it's not been determined if it is pathogenic yet. So that's just a guide. So we can't call it anything else at this point. Hopefully some of the work you do will help us to classify these. Then we'll go to x-axis for VUS, and that includes all of these. Y-axis is all of these. All right, so I have everything else set pretty well. We will have to establish the rest of the range. Let's see. I'm just going to click OK. So I have the start of a graph. And I want to do some manipulation of the graph. I can click on the rows and columns, and if I double click on it, it will show me this information over here. What if I say I don't want any of those lines? And why don't I choose those? I want to get rid of those lines. One thing I forgot to mention is you also have your patient. So if you have already selected a variant of unknown significance, and let's just say that you wanted it to be completely separate, then you set it up as a separate category. And one thing that I found helpful if I'm trying to do that is I copy the row that contains my variant and I move it down to the bottom of the list. And then I just set up an extra legend category and pick that one. Then you can make that individual dot stand for your variant, and we can identify it within the spreadsheet, the scatter plot that we have here. So now I've got that turned off. So the amino acids, we have actually 30 amino acids. So I want to adjust this so that there's not all this blank space on the end of the category. So I click on it, and then I'm going to text options. Nope. Axis options. Maximum, instead of 35, I'm going to set it at 30. And I'm going to say minimum would be 5. Let's see how that looks. And that looks pretty good. So now I'm using most of the space that shows in here. Now this goes up to 180, so again we have a lot of wasted space. So I click on that axis, double click on it, see if I can get it to work. Do axis options. And I'm going to maximize that at 160, which is the highest value of the impact number that has been calculated. We've got the numbers showing at every 20. Let's look. Sometimes you might want to change that in order to keep that axis from being so busy, but I think that's pretty good. We're just going to do that. So now we have this set at 160, this set at 30, but we don't have any chart titles or anything like that on there. So what you can do is go up in the upper left-hand corner, you see where it says Add Chart Element. Click on that, and I'm going to put axis titles, primary horizontal. So I'm going to add in there some text, and the text for this should be amino acid. Okay. If I need to enlarge that, I can go over here and click on Home, and then just click it and enlarge it just a little bit so it's easier to read. Now, I can go back. I go to Chart Design. I click on the Add Element again, Axis Titles, Primary Vertical, which is going to be, get rid of that, likely impact, or whatever the title is on the examples that you've been provided. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm going to click Home. I'm going to increase the size of that so that it shows up. And I think I'm just going to get rid of the chart title for here. All right, so now you basically have your scatter plot. It looks pretty nice. If you have identified your individual patient in there, then it would show up as an individual spot. Here, let's go back and add one. I think let's do 30. We've got 30. I'm going to say 31. And I'm going to make our variant pretty high number, 120. And I'm going to say it's a VUS. Or I can change this and say patient. Right? So now, I forgot to do that before, but I can easily go double click on this, or right click on it, click select data, and I can go in and add patient. I can click on the X value, and then I can click on the Y value and say OK. So now, where is it? Where is that patient? It's 19, 27, 29. I don't see it. So where did it go? Ah, remember I've got this set to 30 and this is set to 31. So why don't I go in and I click on this data and I modify the axis options just a little bit, and I change that to 31. Ah, I'll bet that's ours. See, I had it hidden. So just little mistakes like that can drive you crazy. But you can pick on that, click on it, I mean, and then we can actually do things like do fill color, and well, you get the idea. You can change the color, you can change the size, and then you could put a text box with 31 and an arrow pointing to your exact patient. Um, then you have your scatter plot complete. Hopefully that will help you create your own scatter plot.